A third of all North American birds are either endangered, threatened, or in decline. Today I'll be speaking about a few beautiful birds that have gone extinct. Their stories remind us of ways that we can improve our conservation efforts going forward. So the first species I'm going to talk about is the Bachmans Warbler. It was a small migratory songbird. It was breeding in swampy blackberry and cane thickets of the southern United States and wintering in Cuba. The breeding male was brightly colored on the left, and the female was a duller color or drabber with a gray crown. The last definite sighting was in Charleston, South Carolina in 1962. The warbler bred in timbered bottomland swamps with pools of still water. These swampy forests are mainly composed of deciduous trees such as cypress, sweet gum, dogwood, red oak. The Bachmans Warbler went extinct for several reasons, primarily due to habitat destruction, but logging, swamp drainage, and hunting for the plumes for hats for women. Loss of wintering habitat in Cuba also made a difference. In the 1930s, a winter hurricane in Cuba thought to have decimated much of the population. The great auk was a bird that went extinct in the mid-1800s. It bred on rocky, isolated islands near the ocean and a plentiful food supply. When not breeding, they foraged in waters in the North Atlantic, ranging as far south as northern Spain and on the northern, eastern and western shores of the Atlantic. Originally, it spanned across northern Europe, but the European great auks were eradicated earlier than those in the western Atlantic, and they were found in U.S. waters as non-breeding residents off New England as far south as New Jersey. They are shaped like a fat torpedo. It had a black back and a white belly. The black beak was heavy and hooked. The wings were only 6 inches long, rendering them a flightless bird. The great auk was a powerful swimmer that it used for hunting. It was clumsy on land. It had no predators, so it did not shy away from hunters and egg collectors. The last 2 confirmed specimens were killed off the coast of Iceland in 1844. One study mentioned that an expedition filled 30 rowboats with great auks and their eggs, and they were also used for lobster bait and were used as food. And their eggs were eaten as well. The next bird is the Carolina parakeet. It was a small, green, tropical parrot with a bright yellow head, reddish-orange face, and pale beak. It was native to the eastern Midwestern plain states of the United States. The males were slightly larger than the females, and they were about 13 inches long. It was found from southern New York and Wisconsin to Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Gulf of Mexico, from the Atlantic seaboard to as far west as eastern Colorado. It lived in old-growth forests along rivers and swamps, and had become rare by the middle of the 19th century. The last confirmed sighting was in 1910. And it went extinct for a variety of reasons, including clearing of deciduous forests, hunting for their lovely feathers, and to protect crops. They ate seeds. Honeybees were introduced, and they used the same tree habitats as the birds. And the eggs were collected, and they had a flocking behavior near dead and dying of their own, making them easy targets. The next bird is the Ivorybilled Woodpecker, which was the largest woodpecker in the United States and the second largest in the world. It fed on grubs found under dark bark of old-growth trees. And when researchers were looking for them, they often found the bark on, but they never found the birds. It's similar to the pileated woodpecker and was often confused with it. The pileated does not have white patches on its back, and the female pileated has a red crest, whereas the female ivory-billed has a black crest. And you might have guessed it, but the ivory-billed woodpecker has an ivory bill, and the pileated has a black bill. The ivory-billed woodpecker was found throughout the southern parts of the middle and eastern sections of the country. As it decreased in numbers, the range became restricted to old-growth forests and swamps in the south. The last ivory-billed woodpeckers were seen in the 1930s in Louisiana in an old-growth forest called the Singer Tract. It went extinct also due to habitat destruction. It had a low reproductive rate, and as it became fewer in number, there was more inbreeding. It was wanted for its feathers. The beaks were collected as good luck charms. They were considered farm pets and were hunted. The rural poor used them for food, and even collectors collected them as trophies. The passenger pigeon, to me, is the most amazing extinction of all. The main reason is the huge number of birds that existed before Europeans came to the New World. The birds were an average of 16 inches long with strong wings, and they could fly up to 60 miles per hour. It was a very gregarious species. It was estimated that 3 to 5 billion passenger pigeons populated eastern and central North America before the Europeans came here. At one point, James Audubon watched a flock of passenger pigeons that took 3 days to pass over. Also amazing was its wide distribution throughout the U.S. and Canada. These birds comprise 40% of the total number of birds in the U.S. They bred from April to June. All stages of breeding were synchronous, so that they courted, built nests, laid eggs, incubated, hatched, fed young, and fledged all at the same time. The largest known nesting flock covered 850 square miles. These birds ate mast nuts in forests, and they fed in an area, and then when they were done feeding, they ran out of food, they moved on to a new area. They also fed on fruit, seeds, and insects. And the last ones in the wild were seen in 1910, out of 3 to 5 billion birds. No one believed that hunting them would ever reduce their numbers. They were killed for food and to protect crops. Hunting them became a big business. Trappers captured hundreds and even thousands of birds with one throw of the net. These species provide sobering thoughts and suggest ways that we might conserve challenged populations.